Our planet is in a state of emergency. The signs are everywhere, from melting glaciers to extreme weather events. We are facing a climate crisis, largely driven by human activities. Corporations, particularly in industries like fossil fuels, manufacturing and agriculture, bear a significant responsibility for the environmental degradation we are witnessing. The relentless pursuit of profit has come at a devastating cost to our planet and its inhabitants. The time for complacency is over. We need urgent action to address this crisis and create a sustainable future. The situation is dire, but it is not hopeless. We have the knowledge and the tools to change course. What we need now is the will to act. We need to hold corporations accountable for their environmental impact and demand a transition to sustainable practices. The future of our planet depends on it. The consequences of inaction are simply too great to ignore. We are at a crossroads, and the decisions we make today will determine the fate of generations to come. It is time to rise to the challenge and create a world where both people and the planet can thrive. This is our moment of truth. Let us choose wisely. The burning of fossil fuels, such as coal, oil, and natural gas, is the primary driver of climate change. These industries are responsible for releasing massive amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, trapping heat and warming the planet. Despite the overwhelming scientific consensus on climate change, fossil fuel companies have engaged in decades of denial and misinformation campaigns to protect their profits. They have lobbied against environmental regulations and invested heavily in extracting and burning even more fossil fuels. This reckless pursuit of profit is pushing our planet to the brink. The consequences of climate change are already being felt around the world, from more frequent and intense heat waves to rising sea levels and devastating storms. The human cost of climate change is immeasurable, particularly for vulnerable communities least equipped to cope with its impacts. We need a swift and just transition away from fossil fuels and towards renewable energy sources. This requires a fundamental shift in our energy systems, investing in clean technologies and creating green jobs. It also demands holding fossil fuel companies accountable for their role in creating this crisis and ensuring a just transition for workers and communities currently dependent on the fossil fuel industry. The time for half measures is over. We need bold action to break free from our dependence on fossil fuels and create a sustainable energy future. The manufacturing sector, while essential for economic development, leaves a substantial environmental footprint. From the extraction of raw materials to the production, transportation, and disposal of goods, manufacturing processes consume vast amounts of energy, water, and resources. Many industries release harmful pollutants into the air, water, and soil, contributing to air pollution, water contamination, and land degradation. The rise of fast fashion and disposable products has exacerbated the environmental impact of manufacturing. The relentless pursuit of cheap labor and materials has led to exploitative working conditions and unsustainable practices in many parts of the world. Consumers are often unaware of the hidden costs associated with the products they buy, from the environmental degradation caused by resource extraction to the exploitation of workers in far-off factories. Transitioning to a circular economy is crucial for reducing the environmental impact of manufacturing. This involves minimizing waste, reusing and repurposing materials, and designing products with their entire life cycle in mind. We need to move away from a linear take, make, dispose model and embrace a more sustainable approach that values resource efficiency and minimizes waste. Consumers also have a role to play in promoting sustainable manufacturing practices. By supporting companies that prioritize ethical sourcing, sustainable production, and durable products, consumers can drive demand for more environmentally responsible manufacturing. Agriculture, while essential for feeding the world's growing population, has become a major contributor to environmental degradation. Industrial agriculture relies heavily on monoculture farming, pesticides, and fertilizers, which deplete soil health, pollute waterways, and contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. Deforestation for agricultural expansion, particularly for livestock grazing and palm oil plantations, is a leading cause of habitat loss and biodiversity decline. The way we produce and consume food needs a radical transformation. We need to shift towards agroecological practices that work in harmony with nature, promoting biodiversity, soil health, and water conservation. This includes supporting small-scale farmers, reducing food waste, and promoting more sustainable diets that reduce our reliance on animal products. Consumers can play a significant role in driving the transition to sustainable agriculture by choosing locally sourced organic produce, supporting farmers' markets, and reducing meat consumption. Consumers can promote more sustainable farming practices and reduce the environmental impact of their food choices. Section 5. The global consequences of climate change. Climate change is no longer a distant threat. Its impacts are being felt around the world today. Rising global temperatures are leading to more frequent and intense heat waves, droughts, and wildfires. Extreme weather events such as hurricanes and floods are becoming more severe and destructive. Sea levels are rising at an alarming rate, threatening coastal communities and infrastructure. The consequences of climate change are vast and far-reaching. They include threats to food security, water scarcity, mass displacement, and increased conflict over dwindling resources. The poorest and most vulnerable communities, who have contributed the least to climate change, are disproportionately bearing the brunt of its impacts. Addressing climate change requires a global effort. Countries must work together to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, invest in climate adaptation measures, and support developing nations in their transition to low-carbon economies. The Paris Agreement, adopted by nearly 200 countries, provides a framework for international cooperation on climate action. However, current commitments are insufficient to avert catastrophic climate change. We need more ambitious targets, accelerated action, and a commitment to climate justice to ensure that the burdens and benefits of climate action are shared equitably. Section 6. Toxic pollution poisoning our world. From the air we breathe to the water we drink and the soil that grows our food, pollution is contaminating our environment and threatening human health. Industrial activities, transportation, and agricultural practices release a cocktail of toxic pollutants into the environment, including heavy metals, pesticides, and plastic waste. These pollutants accumulate in the food chain, posing significant risks to human health. Air pollution, primarily from burning fossil fuels and industrial emissions, is a major public health hazard. It is linked to respiratory diseases, heart disease, stroke, and cancer. Water pollution caused by industrial discharge, agricultural runoff, and untreated sewage contaminates drinking water sources and threatens aquatic ecosystems. Soil contamination from pesticides, industrial waste, and mining activities reduces agricultural productivity and poses risks to human health through food contamination. Addressing pollution requires a multi-pronged approach, including stricter regulations on industrial emissions, investing in cleaner technologies, and promoting sustainable consumption and waste management practices. We need to transition to a circular economy that minimizes waste and pollution and promotes the safe and sustainable use of resources. Governments have a crucial role to play in setting and enforcing environmental regulations, while businesses must be held accountable for their environmental performance. Consumers can also make a difference by making informed choices about the products they buy, reducing their consumption, and supporting businesses that prioritize sustainability. Section 7. Deforestation, silencing nature's symphony. Forests are essential for life on Earth. They act as carbon sinks, absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and mitigating climate change. They provide habitat for countless species, regulate water cycles, and protect soil from erosion. Yet forests are being cleared and degraded at an alarming rate, primarily driven by agricultural expansion, logging, and mining. Deforestation has devastating consequences for the planet and its inhabitants. It contributes to climate change, destroys biodiversity, disrupts water cycles, and increases the risk of landslides and floods. Indigenous communities who rely on forests for their livelihoods and cultural survival are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of deforestation. Protecting and restoring forests is crucial for addressing climate change, preserving biodiversity, and securing the livelihoods of millions of people. This requires a combination of measures, including halting deforestation, promoting sustainable forest management practices, and restoring degraded forests. Consumers can play a role in protecting forests by choosing products from sustainably managed forests, reducing their paper consumption, and supporting organizations working to protect forests and indigenous rights. Section 8. A call for corporate accountability and sustainable solutions. For too long, corporations have operated with impunity, prioritizing profit over the well-being of the planet and its inhabitants. It is time to hold them accountable for their environmental impact and demand a fundamental shift towards sustainable practices. This requires a multifaceted approach involving government regulation, corporate responsibility, and consumer action. Governments must implement and enforce stricter environmental regulations, putting a price on carbon emissions, banning harmful chemicals, and protecting ecosystems. Corporations must be held accountable for their environmental footprint throughout their supply chains, from the sourcing of raw materials to the disposal of products. They need to adopt sustainable practices, invest in clean technologies, and be transparent about their environmental performance. Numerous solutions exist for a more sustainable future. Renewable energy sources, such as solar, wind, and geothermal, offer clean and sustainable alternatives to fossil fuels. Circular economy models promote resource efficiency, waste reduction, and the development of sustainable products and business models. Agroecological farming practices can feed the world sustainably while protecting ecosystems and biodiversity. Transitioning to a sustainable future requires a fundamental shift in our economic system, moving away from a model based on endless growth and consumption towards one that values social and environmental well-being. It requires rethinking our relationship with nature, recognizing that we are part of a delicate web of life and that our actions have consequences. Section 9. The power of consumer choice driving change. As consumers, we have immense power to drive change through our choices. Every purchase we make is a vote for the kind of world we want to live in. By choosing to support businesses that prioritize sustainability, we can send a powerful message to the market that we demand better. We can choose products made from recycled materials, support companies that are committed to reducing their environmental impact, and prioritize experiences over material possessions. Beyond our individual choices, we can amplify our impact by advocating for systemic change. We can engage in political processes, support organizations working on environmental issues, and hold our elected officials accountable for their environmental records. We can use our voices to demand stricter regulations, promote sustainable solutions, and create a future where both people and the planet can thrive. The challenges we face are significant, but they are not insurmountable. The transition to a sustainable future will require collective action, innovation, and a shared commitment to creating a better world for generations to come. By embracing our power as consumers, citizens, and agents of change, we can create a future where both people and the planet can thrive.